A lone warrior, a wall of flesh and steel. He stood defiant against an entire empire's unexpected fury. This was Hardrada, the last Viking king, a legend forged in fire, seeking England's crown with brutal resolve. And a king, weary and burdened, pushed his men across vast lands, racing a relentless tide of invaders now. Victory's fleeting joy shattered by a whisper. Another storm from across the sea now brewed. England's fate hung. Imagine, if you will, a land suspended between old ways and new, where the very air whispered of change. This was Anglo-Saxon England in the year 1066, a kingdom rich in spirit, yet fragile in its peace. One king, Harold Godwinson, faced an impossible question. Could any man withstand two invasions at once? The north wind howled with an ancient fury, carrying whispers of a storm, not just of weather, but of war. From beyond the northern horizon, a shadow stretched. A name echoed through history. Viking. They were coming. The immediate threat was visceral, existential. Homes burned, lives scattered, a brutal fear gripping the land. This was no mere raid. This was a returning tide, a massive fleet, bringing the full, terrible might of the north. The fury in their eyes, a thirst for glory. They believed England was theirs, a prize waiting for their grasp. A staggering sight, a horizon bristling with sails. 300 longships, 10,000 warriors, descending upon England. Could one man, one newly crowned king, truly face such extraordinary circumstances? His kingdom's fate rested solely on him. Two threats, two overwhelming ambitions. England was a rich prize, coveted by formidable men, hungry for power. Yet, England had its own defenders. Men hardened by duty, willing to stand for their king, for their very soil. In every village, every household, a quiet dread settled. The weight of impending conflict hung heavy in the air. But amidst the fear, a spark of defiance. England would not fall easily. Her people would fight. And so, the stage was set for a confrontation unlike any other, at a place called Stamford Bridge, a quiet corner of England, soon to witness a blood-soaked clash, a desperate struggle for a kingdom's very soul. The Anglo-Saxon realm, perched on a precipice, its destiny hanging by threads of steel and human will. This is a story of kings and invaders, of courage and treachery, a tale etched forever in the annals of history. In the hush of winter, a new king was crowned, but the air still held the chill of uncertainty. Harold's ascent felt swift, almost too sudden, a crown heavy with expectation and unspoken doubts. This wasn't merely gold, it was a beacon, drawing hungry eyes from across the narrow seas. Whispers followed the coronation, old loyalties fraying, new seeds of discontent quietly taking root. The shadow of past promises and forgotten claims loomed large over Harold's new dominion. England, a rich prize, lay vulnerable, coveted by those beyond her shores, by kinsmen and kings. The old king's last breath left a vacuum, a question hanging heavy in the sacred English air. An oath was sworn, perhaps in haste, shaping a destiny that would soon collide with fate. The coronation itself felt rushed, a desperate bid to solidify power before the world could truly react. Across the Channel, news of Harold's crown ignited a duke's fury, a claim now brazenly ignored. William of Normandy saw not a king, but a usurper, a broken promise, an unforgivable affront. The parchment lay accusingly, detailing pledges made, promises now shattered by a single desperate act. And in the north, distant rumblings of discontent stirred, a realm always eager to test new authority. Tostig, Harold's own brother, festered in exile, his heart a cauldron of vengeance and bitter betrayal. A family divided, a bond shattered, a personal wound festering at the heart of the kingdom. Far to the north, across icy fjords, other eyes turned towards England, ancient ambitions stirring once more. Harald Hardrada, the last great Viking, dreamt of English gold, a final glorious chapter. His reputation was fearsome, his army seasoned. A storm was brewing on the distant northern horizon. The realm stretched vast, Harold's reach precarious, constantly challenged by geography and sheer distance. In hushed councils, men debated, weighing the impossible choices that now faced their new, uncertain king. Most people, in their humble villages, remained oblivious to the tempest brewing, their quiet lives unfolding. The land was fertile, life seemingly stable, yet beneath the surface, fault lines were truly appearing. The burden of kingship pressed hard upon Harold's shoulders, a crown that offered no easy slumber. He knew the precariousness, the delicate balance of power, the ever-present threat to his throne. Sleepless nights surely followed, each flicker of the candle illuminating the enormity of his fate. The sea, once a protector, now became a highway for ambition, for those who craved English earth. From north to south, England's shores lay open, a tempting prize for any who dared to grasp it. He was a king, yet also a man, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire, uncertain nation. The air grew heavy with anticipation, the horizon darkening with the promise of unimaginable, approaching storms. The crown, a symbol of power, now felt like a target, drawing the gaze of a blood-soaked north. The wind whispers tales of old, carrying echoes of a coming storm from the distant, unforgiving north. Far across the grey waters, something stirs. A shadow stretches, growing larger, promising an unwelcome dawn. They were coming not as merchants seeking trade, but as warriors, driven by ancient, restless blood. A quiet dread spread across the land, a chill seeping into the very bones of the realm. Yet, this was no ordinary raid. A different kind of Viking king now steered these fearsome ships. Meet Harald Hardrada, Hard Ruler, a name whispered with both reverence and profound, chilling fear. His journey began exiled, a young prince forced to forge destiny in a brutal, unforgiving world. From Rus's freezing forests, he learned politics' cruelties and the sharp, unforgiving edge of power. Then to Byzantium's golden courts, where he served as a fearsome warrior, guarding emperors and secrets. He amassed fortunes and wisdom, mastering strategy, leaving behind a trail of legend and cunning. Returning home, he seized his birthright, becoming king, master of his harsh, northern domain. Norway's crown was not enough. His gaze, ever hungry, now fell upon England's fertile green lands. Ancient ties, old Viking dreams, whispered promises of wealth and glory, beckoned him across the sea. He was no mere raider, his mind a steel trap, planning every move with meticulous, deadly precision. A grand invasion, the last great Viking storm, was slowly, inexorably, beginning to brew. Yet Hardrada was not alone. A bitter, exiled brother would soon join his fateful, ambitious quest. This was Harold Godwinson, once Earl of Northumbria, brother to England's new king, Harold. Banished from home, betrayed by family, his heart festered with a deep, burning resentment. Vengeance, a bitter taste, now fueled his every thought, a thirst for retribution unquenchable. He craved power, a throne, anything to reclaim what was unjustly stripped from his grasp. So he wandered, a restless spirit, searching for any hand to aid his desperate, furious cause. And so, fate, in its cruel wisdom, brought two men bound by ambition, hunger for England, an alliance forged, born of shared purpose, conquest for one, vengeance and power for the other. Hardrada's might, bolstered by Tostig's desperate cunning, became a terrifying, unstoppable tide. Across the churning grey waters they sailed, a fleet of ambition bound for England's unsuspecting shores. The stage was set. Two brothers, two kings, a destiny hung heavy in the cold autumn air. Titans were gathering, each with claims, dreams, their own desperate battles yet to fight. England itself now stood precariously on the brink, threatened by this final, ferocious Viking storm. A quiet tension filled the air, rustling armor, sharpening blades, a nation holding its breath. The final, blood-soaked chapter in a long saga was about to violently begin. The Northumbrian coast, a place of quiet rhythms and ancient whispers, once knew a fragile peace. Villages tucked away, lives woven from toil and simple joys, continued unaware of what approached. Children played, their laughter light upon the breeze, a sound that soon would be overshadowed. Old tales were shared, of distant raids and brave men, but these felt like echoes, not warnings. The watchful eyes on the coast, accustomed to empty seas, saw only the familiar for a time. Yet, a different kind of storm was brewing, not of wind or rain, but of iron and fire. Then, a speck, a solitary shadow on the vast canvas of the sea, barely noticed, yet it grew, more followed, like dark migratory birds, an unnatural flock against the distant, hazy sky. The sentinel squinted, his heart quickening its rhythm, a cold premonition seizing his spirit. No ordinary fishing fleet. These were the dragon's teeth, countless longships bearing down relentlessly. 300 longships, a monstrous armada, a terrifying sight, born of the northern winds. 10,000 warriors, so many souls bent on conquest, their intentions clear and chillingly stark. Led by Hardrada, the thunderbolt of the north, and Tostig, a brother's bitter betrayal manifest. The scream started then, carried on the salt-laced wind, piercing the village's fragile calm. Panic seized the hearts of the folk. Their world, once steady, now crumbled before their eyes. The longships crunched ashore, their dragon heads snarling, spitting forth a tide of wrath. A torrent of steel and fury spilled onto the land, Viking boots stamping the hallowed English earth. Then came the smoke, a dark stain against the sky, marking where innocence was lost forever. Doors splintered, homes ransacked, a terror unleashed upon the unsuspecting folk of Northumbria. Mothers clutched their children, running from the nightmare, their simple lives shattered completely. Fire consumed what generations had built, turning warmth and history into ash and bitter memory. Local resistance, brave but outnumbered, was swept aside by the seasoned, ruthless invaders. They marched inland, an unstoppable tide, leaving only desolation and fear in their wake. Their target was clear: York, the heart of the north, a vital jewel to be seized. The news traveled fast, a chilling whisper on the wind, reaching even distant, weary ears. Earl Morcar and Earl Edwin, defenders of the north, faced a terrible, immediate choice. They gathered their men, the last hope for York, a desperate shield against the rising storm. The Vikings, emboldened by easy victories, pressed on, a relentless, unstoppable force of nature. At Fulford, near the Ouse, the Anglo-Saxons braced, hoping the treacherous ground would aid them. The horns blared, a sound from an ancient, forgotten past, heralding inevitable conflict. Steel met steel, a symphony of terror and pain, as two worlds collided with brutal force. Despite their courage, the Anglo-Saxons were simply too few against so many hardened warriors. Morcar and Edwin fought valiantly, their desperate efforts echoing across the bloody field. But the tide turned, inevitably, as the marshy ground became slick with defeat and sacrifice. The battle was lost. A swift, decisive victory for the invaders, a profound blow to England. The field of Fulford, now a graveyard, whispered tales of Anglo-Saxon suffering and loss. Hardrada and Tostig stood victorious, their ambitions now seeming terrifyingly within reach. York capitulated, its defenses broken, its people left to the mercy of their new, harsh masters. The news of Fulford, a cold dagger, reached King Harold, far to the south. His coronation barely behind him. Another storm, a greater challenge, now threatened his throne. This was no mere raid. This was an existential threat, a claim to his very kingdom. He knew he could not wait. To hesitate was to lose everything he had sworn to protect. A desperate response was needed, a gamble against time and unimaginable odds, a king's duty. The fate of England, a fragile realm, now rested solely upon one man's swift, courageous decision. Victory's sweet taste often hides bitter news, doesn't it? For Harold it arrived swiftly, chilling him to the bone. The words carried north wind's chill. Hardrada's fleet had landed, a vast ravenous force. The joy of Fulford Gate faded, replaced by a heavy dread that settled deep within their bones. Harold knew, with a certainty that chilled him, the immense, terrifying threat now looming over England. The distance stretched vast, a cruel joke. His army rested, But the north burned. Between his weary men and the invaders lay nearly 200 miles of unforgiving English earth. Many urged patience, a gathering of strength, a pause after such recent bloody triumph. But Harold knew time was a precious commodity, one England simply could not afford to squander. The king's command, whispered through the camp, brought a collective tired gasp of disbelief. An army, still sore from battle, must now march again, faster than any before. Tents fell with heavy sighs. The journey north began anew, a desperate, impossible undertaking. Thousands of weary feet began their impossible pilgrimage, a blur of resolute determination against the morning Sunday. The path ahead wound endlessly, through whispering forests and across vast, indifferent fields. They carried little, their rations quickly dwindling, a constant gnawing worry in their bellies. Logistics became a cruel, relentless master, testing the very limits of human ingenuity and strength. Horses strained and faltered, some collapsing from sheer exhaustion, unable to keep the pace. Roads dissolved into muddy tracks, then vanished into the rough, unforgiving wilderness. Each night, a brief, restless slumber before the relentless call of the new dawn. The sheer speed of this forced march was a terrifying testament to their unwavering human endurance. Never had an English army moved so swiftly across such a formidable, daunting distance. Day bled into night. The rhythmic march became their only truth, their constant companion. Harold rode among them, a silent, unwavering promise etched onto his weary, determined face. He shared their hardship, his own resolve mirroring theirs with every single agonizing step. This relentless, desperate gamble was their final, only hope for a chance at survival. Every muscle ached, every breath was heavy, yet they pressed on, fueled by desperation. The miles melted away, agonizingly slow in the moment, astonishingly fast in retrospect. A blur of passing English countryside, mostly unseen by their tired, downcast, desperate eyes. 4 days passed like a single, arduous breath, an incredible feat of human will. Harold's iron will became the army's beating heart, its very pulse, its lifeblood. He pushed them, yes, but more profoundly he inspired a deep, quiet loyalty. This wasn't just a king's command. It was a nation's desperate, pleading cry for survival. Their collective determination became a quiet roar, a defiant promise against the coming storm. Finally, faint signs of the north appeared, the landscape slowly beginning to change. A faint hope flickered in weary eyes, knowing the end of their arduous journey drew near. The element of surprise, Harold's cunning, desperate plan, was now within their grasp. He had gambled everything on sheer, blinding speed, and it had paid off beautifully. At Stamford Bridge, the Vikings basked in false security, utterly unprepared for what approached. Many had shed their heavy armor, the warm weather inviting a dangerous, fatal ease. Their banners fluttered idly, unaware of the English storm brewing just beyond sight. Then, a sudden shadow, a ripple of alarm, as the English vanguard shockingly appeared. Harold rode forward, his presence a stark, imposing silhouette against the morning sky. A parley is called, a moment of fragile pause before the inevitable bloody clash. Harold offered his brother Tostig a measure of peace, a land to call his own. 6 feet of English ground, he defiantly states, the very air whispered of tragedy, a solemn promise to those who would cross. It hung heavy. He was no king, just a man. Yet, the spirit of his people burned within him, defiant. The shield wall paused. An unstoppable tide met unyielding stone in one solitary, defiant soul. A silent challenge was issued, a daring gambit played on fate's cruel, narrow stage. What unfolds? His axe sang a dreadful tune, a lament for the fallen, a warning to all who dared. Each swing of his axe carved a grim testament, a pile of courage, blood, and defiance rising. How could one man hold a host at bay? It defied belief, his spirit made manifest here. A legend was forged in steel, in sacrifice, whispered in hushed tones around countless hearths. Even the mightiest tide finds a way around the rock, a path unlooked for, cruelly found. The silence after his fall was deafening. a profound quiet marking a true hero's passing. The dam had broken. A river of steel and shouting spilled forth, eager to reclaim this ground. Caught unawares, Northmen scrambled, their festive mood shattered by war's sudden terrifying clang. Stamford Bridge became a crucible, where lives were forged and broken in battle's cruel heat. No quarter asked, none given. A primal scream for survival against overwhelming odds. Desperate, raw. Many fought with bare chests, their skin the only shield against steel's unforgiving bite. Now, Hardrada watched, his decisions weighing heavily. A king witnessing his grand ambition tragically unravel. Tostig, caught between worlds, fought. His last hope was fading, swiftly, tragically, inevitably now. Disciplined, determined, the English shield wall advanced. A tide of steel crushing all resistance. Vikings dug in, struggling to maintain their line, pushed to the breaking point, grimly holding. The air thickened with fear and iron, a grim perfume for the ravenous gods of war. Seeing his men fall, the old king knew his place was among them. In the battle now, his presence alone brought a fleeting surge of hope, a desperate roar against the darkness. Yet, like an ancient oak, the English lines bent, did not break, absorbing fury. He fought not for victory, but for forgiveness, a desperate plea to a past truly lost. The English pressed on, an unyielding will, slowly overwhelming the weary invaders, relentlessly. The weight of years, of battles, bore down on the old Norse king's weary shoulders. A great tree had fallen. The Viking sun set with its mightiest warrior, truly gone. A cry of anguish rippled through their ranks, a collective gasp. Their leader vanished. A flicker of despair crossed Tostig's face, a premonition of his own lonely, tragic end. He fought with ferocity, a trapped wolf. His time, his brother's trust, both now utterly lost. And so, the brother fell. His last breath mingled with the river, unheard, unmourned, forever gone. With leaders gone, the English knew victory was within grasp, a brutal, blood-soaked one. The orderly lines shattered, turning into desperate flight, scattering against the hungry blades. Armorless Vikings, exhausted, broken, offered little resistance against fresh, disciplined Anglo-Saxons. The water itself wept, carrying stories of broken men, shattered dreams downstream to its depths. The field was a graveyard, a brutal canvas painted crimson, witnessing humanity's dark capacity. No escape, no quarter. The vengeance of a betrayed land was absolute, cold, relentless. What echoes remained in such a soul, seeing their world crumble to dust and blood? The day bled into night, leaving a silence more chilling than any battle cry. A costly victory, yet a triumph. The Anglo-Saxon realm had held, but at what cost? He defended his kingdom. Victory's taste, bittersweet, tainted by his own brother's spilt blood. The bridge, once a passage of life, now stood a monument to courage and many ends. Water remembers nothing, yet carries all stories. So too history, flowing ever onwards, relentless. And so, the Northmen's dream dissolved, a tragic saga etched into this foreign, bloodied soil. The roar of battle had died. An awful quiet settled, broken only by the mournful cries of gulls now circling. Where fierce warriors once stood, now lay only stillness, a grim canvas painted by the brutal hand of war. Each dent, each stain, a whispered tale of courage, a silent scream frozen in the unyielding soil. The ground itself seemed to weep, soaked deep with the crimson tide that flowed from so many young men. Nature begins its somber reclamation. Life finds its way. Even amongst the silent, unmoving legions, their victory felt hollow, a heavy cloak draped over weary shoulders, chilled by the breath of death. Young faces, old faces, all united now in the vast, silent brotherhood of the eternally fallen. Thousands of brave men, once roaring with life, now lay silent, a horrifying testament to the battle's fury. This was not merely a field, it was a vast, sprawling grave, etched into the very memory of England. These once feared weapons now lay abandoned, their song of war abruptly silenced, their purpose ended. The wind carries their last breaths, their final whispers, scattering them across the fields they sought to claim. Amidst the chaos, a tiny glint of faith, a reminder of the precious souls now departed from this world. A sea of fallen warriors, their dreams extinguished, their journeys ended far from their northern shores. Harold stood, a king victorious, yet his gaze held the shadow of immense, heartbreaking loss. Their strength was utterly spent, their victory hard won. The taste of triumph was bittersweet, mingled with iron. The exhaustion sank deep, a heavy weight after the brutal, unending symphony of steel and screams. No joyful shouts, no celebrations. Only the quiet contemplation of the terrible, crushing cost of their survival. A victory, yes, but at what immeasurable cost? The very soul of his army was now utterly depleted. His shield wall, though unbroken, was now thinned. Their triumph felt fragile, like glass after a great fall. The silence spoke volumes. Thousands of northern souls would never again see their familiar, beloved homelands. Imagine a fleet of 300 proud longships, now mostly hollow, awaiting their tragic return. Only 24 ships, a stark and somber remnant, were needed to carry the few weary survivors. They sailed home, broken and diminished, leaving behind a legacy etched in the blood-soaked soil of England. The silence after such thunder, it felt almost sacred, a heavy peace settling on the scarred land. Victory had been earned, carved from the very heart of their courage and unimaginable sacrifice, truly. King Harold, for a moment, allowed himself to breathe, tasting the bitter sweetness of his hard-won triumph. As twilight deepened, a brief illusion of safety embraced the weary, battle-scarred Anglo-Saxon host. But even as they rested, a shadow moved across the distant southern horizon, carrying grim tidings. He rode through the fading light, a silent scream of warning trapped within his desperate, weary soul. Into their quiet vigil, a breathless, urgent whisper broke the fragile peace of that northern night. The king's rest was violently shattered. A chill foreboding crept into his heart, disrupting tranquility. He listened, and the words, like ice, began to spread through his very veins, numbing his senses. From the south, an unthinkable truth emerged. William, with his fleet, had crossed the waters. At Pevensey Bay, a foreign standard now fluttered defiantly, challenging the very heart of England. Just 3 sunrises had passed since their great northern triumph. Now, another foe arrived. The crushing weight of this revelation fell upon him. Victory, it seemed, had come with a cruel price. He saw his weary men, tasted their bittersweet joy. He knew what must be done now. South, he declared, his voice somber. We must turn, face this new, terrible threat now. The celebration died on their lips, replaced by a deep sigh of collective, profound weariness. They turned their backs on the north, on their triumph, beginning a forced march into unknown peril. Each weary step carried them further from solace, deeper into a relentless journey towards destiny. The ground beneath their feet whispered tales of 2 battles, so close, yet worlds apart. That glorious victory, won with so much blood, now felt like a cruel joke of history. A king's burden, heavier than any crown, weighed upon Harold as they journeyed towards their fate. The path ahead, shrouded in gathering clouds, held secrets yet untold, whispers of their coming doom. The hard-won victory in the north had, with tragic irony, ultimately sealed Harold's fateful destiny. The quiet after the storm, holding countless lost lives, etched forever into this very ground. Feel it. This ground, more than battle, became a quiet pivot, reshaping the destiny of a nascent nation. Feel it. Here, the long shadow of dragon ships, looming for centuries, finally began its gentle, last recede. The age of Northmen, their fierce spirit and dreams, finally found its definitive, quiet close. But within this glorious triumph, a cruel irony awaited, leading to untold future, devastating sorrow. Harold's hard-won victory, testament to courage, came at an unimaginable, truly heavy, personal cost. Their bodies weary, numbers thinned, they pressed onward, unknowingly towards their fateful, tragic final fight. The strength spent at Stamford Bridge was soon needed elsewhere, against a new, relentless, ominous tide. This brief, shining victory profoundly altered the course of English history, redirecting its flowing river. And with it, the very language, the culture we share, began its profound, slow, undeniable shift. Stamford Bridge remains an unsung hero, a valiant chapter overshadowed by the greater, future tragedy. It stands as a testament to incredible courage, a heroic effort, tinged with profound, lasting sadness. The echoes of that desperate, glorious fight were lost amidst the clamor of a greater, final fall. Let us remember these quiet heroes whose courage forged a nation, share their story, honor them always.